Keto diet versus Atkins diet. What are they, and what do you need to know to make the best decisions for yourself and your health? Coming right up. The Atkins diet was originated by Dr. Robert Atkins. He was born in 1930, he went to medical school, graduated, was a cardiologist, but he didn't do so well in the beginning, and he gained a lot of weight, he got depressed, and then he looked into low carb as promoted by Alfred Pennington, and he managed to lose his weight, and he got all excited, and he started a clinic to help people lose weight, and he wrote a book that was published in 1972 called The Atkins Diet Revolution. Then in 1989 he founded Atkins Nutritionals so that now he could expand his business and provide some foods and snacks for people that were lower in carbohydrate than the standard fare. In 2003, he slipped on the ice, he hit his head, and he died a few days later from complications after surgery from a blood clot. So after Dr. Atkins was gone, the company went downhill and it was bankrupt in 2005. It was later bought out. So now Atkins is still around and doing business, but it's not Dr. Atkins anymore. It is just a company owned by a third party who is doing business and trying to continue some of the ideas that Dr. Atkins started. So what did he do right? Well, in a time of low-fat craze, in the height of the low-fat craze in the 70s and 80s, he took his chin out and he said that the high-fat, low-carb is the way to go. So he was kind of a trendsetter, and his book initiated a lot of the ideas that we see today about low-carb dieting, low-carb principles. If you go research Atkins today, then you will see that they have different stages, different levels, and the strictest level is if you have a disease, if you're diabetic, if you have extreme obesity, then they put you in the Atkins 20, which means you're eating 20 grams or less of carbohydrate per day. If you're not diabetic but you have significant amount of weight to lose, then they recommend the Atkins 40 with 40 grams or less. And if you just want to maintain your health, if you're at a ideal weight for you, then you can eat the Atkins 100 with 100 grams of carbs. So far so good. I agree with just about everything so far. So then when you go and you compare, on the Atkins site you can look and they compare keto to Atkins, then they give you the following numbers. So they say that the classic keto, which is kind of the keto that was started to help kids with seizures that had extremely low carbohydrates. So they had less than 5% of energy from carbs, 5 to 20% from protein, and 75 to 90% from fat. And with the seizure kids, they were more like 90%, closer to 90% fat. So today when we do keto, we don't do it quite that strict, and we look a little bit more about the whole picture, but this is pretty close. I tell people around 75% fat, 10, 15, 20% protein, and 5 to 10% maybe of carbohydrates, depending on how stubborn your body is. What Atkins promotes is, for the strictest level, they have 5 to 10% carbohydrates. So that's very similar to what a keto diet would be today. But where it differs the most is that they have 20 to 30%. They have somewhere around twice as much protein. And why is that a problem? Because what we're trying to do with the low carb and the keto is we're trying to reverse insulin resistance. We're trying to reduce insulin production in the body, because that's the central mechanism that all of this revolves around. And while carbohydrates have the highest insulin response, proteins still have a significant, sometimes high insulin response. Again, not as high as carbs, but it's very, very significant. And fat is the substance that has almost zero insulin response. So even though both of these reduce carbohydrates dramatically, keto is about moderate to low protein. When you increase protein too much, you're still stimulating too much insulin for some people. In the Atkins 40, they allow 10 to 15% from carbs and the same protein, 20 to 30, and just a little bit less fat. So can you lose weight on this? Well, obviously, a lot of people do. So it is working in the sense of weight loss for a lot or most people. But if your metabolism is really stubborn, then this is probably too much protein for some of you. And that's important to realize because we always try to look for the golden rule. We try to look for the right set of principles for everybody, and there is no such thing. Some people are probably going to lose a tremendous amount of weight on eating 40, 50, 60, even 80 grams of carbs. If you have a relatively fast metabolism, you haven't had the insulin resistance very long, you don't have to change a whole lot. But if you're very, very stubborn, then you might have to get down to very close to zero carbs, and that even might not be enough. The other thing that they're talking about that I don't agree with at all is 3 to 5 meals a day, and they say don't skip meals. Because it's all about reversing insulin. Low carb triggers less insulin than high carb, but fasting, meaning when you don't eat, triggers even less insulin than low carb. So every time that you eat, you are stimulating insulin to some degree. And when you eat 3 to 5 meals a day, then you're triggering insulin 3 to 5 times per day. So fasting is when you don't eat at all, so you're not triggering insulin at all. And what you find when you cut carbs significantly low, you get less hungry because your body is switching to a fat metabolism. And then if you don't get hungry, you don't want to eat. That's just the simplest way of putting it. Don't eat if you're not hungry. Your body is trying to tell you, hey, I'm doing all right here. So when it comes to insulin resistance, there's 3 things that you have influence over diet-wise. It's the amount of carbs, it's the amount of protein, and it's how often you eat. So you want to reduce carbs, reduce protein, and reduce the number of meals. The Atkins diet only fulfills the first part there of less carbs. They don't focus on less protein, and they don't focus on less meals. So even though some people, or a lot of people, can lose weight, the people that have the biggest challenges are the ones that really need to pay attention. They're the ones that really need this diet. And then the Atkins probably not going to work for them because they eat too much protein and too many meals. The other problem I have with this diet is that it does not focus on health, not in the least. Are some people going to get healthier? Absolutely, because for some people, their main problem is insulin resistance. And if they cut the carbs, they're going to reduce some insulin resistance. But health is bigger than that. And skinny people have diseases too. Thin people get cancer and high cholesterol and diabetes and so forth. So it's not about the weight, it's about the health. And the so-called Atkins approved food products, whether they are produced by Atkins or whether they're approved some other way, are full of chemicals, preservatives, artificial sweeteners, and GMO products. So in that sense, they're really no better than any other processed packaged food. They're lower in carbs, so they help you with the insulin, but other than that, it's still just processed food, or I might even say junk food in many cases. So overall, it's better than the standard American diet, but it's still processed, it still has too much protein, and they're eating too many meals. So I looked at some of the products that they had, and the principles are pretty much the same regardless of which product you look at. But here's, for example, an energy shake that has 9 grams of total fat. It has 15 grams of protein, and that's too much protein in relation to that fat. It's almost twice as much protein as fat. Furthermore, one shake is 170 calories. That's why they have to eat all these frequent meals, whereas if you do keto and you do OMAD, you do intermittent fasting, you know that you need substantial meals. You want to get several hundred calories, maybe 1,000 or more calories per meal. So 170 calories in a meal, that's barely a snack, which you don't want to do in the first place. Then you look at some of the ingredients, and we see soy protein isolate, we see corn fiber, both of which are GMOs, natural and artificial flavors, dipotassium phosphates, we see sucralose, and then we see a lot of artificial synthetic vitamins included in that as well. So it's better than regular processed food in the sense that it has less carbohydrate, less sugar, but it is no better in the sense that it has just as much junk food in it, just as much processed food as anything else. And then they say, of course, you don't have to stay away from pizza as long as you get the Atkins pizza, which I think I'm not exaggerating when I say it has over 50 ingredients. Up at the top we have wheat gluten and cornstarch. So these are things, cornstarch again is GMO, soy protein isolates, GMO, harshly processed. But wheat gluten is the protein from gluten that people with celiacs are sensitive to. So even if you don't have celiacs, that's a very, very harsh food to digest, and it's processed. Then they have sucralose, artificial sweeteners in the pizza. You have cornstarch, corn oil, natural and artificial flavors. And then there's another 30 ingredients before we get down to sodium nitrite, and BHA, BHT, and preservatives, and so forth. So realize that this is just more processed food. It's just junk food in another wrapper. So has it done some people some good? Absolutely. It helped start the low-carb revolution, if you will. It took it from obscurity onto the front lines. And what you're looking for, though, is not a diet. You're looking for principles. You want to use it as a starting point, but then start learning all the principles that we talk about. Understand what health really is. That it's not about weight loss. That the weight gain, obesity, is an imbalance. If you correct the imbalance and provide your body what it needs, the body will shed the weight. So ketosis is a physiological principle. It's not a person that came up with ketosis or dictated this is the way that keto is. It is whatever it takes for you to get into ketosis. For some people, it's 20 grams of carbs. For some people, it's 50 or 60. For some people, it's enough to cut out soda and processed grains. For other people, they need to do extensive intermittent fasting or exercise or low carb or keto or all of the above in different combinations. So it's trial and error. You start with a set of principles, but what keto is, it's a way of measuring. So ketones are produced when you are burning fat for fuel. But ketones in itself is not even a guarantee of weight loss, because if you're extremely insulin resistant, you can still hold on to the fat on the body and you get hungry enough that you provide enough fat in the diet to stay fat adapted and make ketones but not burn anything off your own body weight. So in those cases, you need to not just do keto, but you need to add in some fasting and some exercise to kind of jumpstart, to give the body more incentive to get to that fat. If you're new to this channel and you enjoy this sort of content where we explain the bigger picture, which we try to do in all these videos, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. And please share this content with as many people as you can. It's simple. You click the share button and then you send the link on the next page to wherever you want to send it. and then you help us get this information out so that we can help more people get healthy. Thanks for watching.